Hi, I'm Ron W. Carter, and this is the very first episode of Your God Stories, where I interview people about how God has intervened in impossible situations. Today I'm talking with Mike and Jill Spiva. Mike has been through tremendous health challenges the past 15 years or so, but the hand of God on his life has been nothing short of miraculous. Here's the interview.
Hello, Ron. It's great seeing you again. It's been a while since Jill and I have been in your presence. And just wanted to talk to you a little bit, kind of tell you how Jill and I met. It actually happened when she was in high school. And I was a year out of high school, the summer out of after I graduated. Our youth group was going to go up to Phoenix, Arizona to witness in a park. I needed new tennis shoes. So I went into a store called Ben Franklin. Before they were a craft store, they used to be a variety store. I saw this beautiful vision a couple aisles over, and it was my lovely wife. So I looked up, went over to her. I was pretty shy at the time. I had no idea how to approach a woman I fell madly in love with in 5 seconds. I just started witnessing to her. I started slamming the four spiritual laws at her, and I wouldn't let up. She finally pulled her hair back. She was wearing cross earrings. She says, "I'm already a Christian." And I thought, oh boy, now what am I going to do? So we talked more.
Now what do I say?
Yeah, now what do I say? So we talked more, and the rest is history. We got married about 3 years later. 3 years later, and we have 3 children, 2 girls and a boy, and 7 grandchildren. And this September, we will celebrate 47 years of marriage.
Wow, that's awesome. God has blessed you with a big family.
Yes, yes. We are blessed in many ways. So,
And a great family. Have 3 kids that we're very proud of. Unfortunately, they don't live close. Yeah,
the Sundays.
yeah, our son lives close, but our daughters live a ways away. But we're very proud of them and the way they're raising their families. And yeah, they've been a blessing in our lives, for sure.
So,
Family is everything.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Mike always went out to work and cared for us, and I stayed home and cared for our children and took in other children at the time to be their playmates and help support our budget. But Mike has a lot of contacts he made through.
and I had had some illnesses and such, and then in 2007, we found that I had an aortic aneurysm. The aneurysm right where the aorta goes right into the heart. So they had to repair that, and it was larger than what they thought. And that's one of the things that if it would have burst, I'd have about 3 seconds to live before I bled out. It's the same thing that John Ritter had. So then I recovered from that, but it left a lot of scar tissue and a lot of wire in my chest. And that, as we'll find out later, was pretty significant in the decision by lung transplant.
How did you discover the aortic aneurysm? Was that just a routine exam, or were you having some symptoms before that?
So it was really kind of strange. I was working on my computer at home, and I just kind of forgot what I was doing. And I was kind of blanking out, and I felt my blood pressure was really high. So I had to drop off the computer at a repair shop. I mean, they fixed it right away. So I had it in my car. I went to work, and I knew something wasn't right. So I went to a fire station that was real close to my office and asked them to take my blood pressure. And according to the captain, he ran an EKG right there in the station. And he did blood pressure. And he wanted to rush me to the hospital. He said, it's off the charts. I said, no, I'm not going to the hospital. And so
I didn't know any of this was going on
she didn't know this
at the time. I mean, I knew he had symptoms later, but I didn't know what was happening.
Oh, wow.
And so I got home and I went to my own doctor. He sent me over to the hospital then to do a check enzymes test. Nothing really showed up. So they kept on running more and more tests because my physician's assistant said, there's something going on. Well, sure enough, they found the aneurysm. And that's how that happened.
So they did open heart surgery and they repaired that.
They did.
And then what was your recovery time like?
Well, it was in the hospital for about 2 weeks. And then 3 months, I had to be at home. And I actually cheated a little bit because our son was going off to New York to go to the Culinary Institute of America. And there was no way I was going to let Jill take him home. So I went back to work early because I was on benefits. I worked for the telephone company. And when you're on benefits, you can't go out of town. And so I just said, well, I'm going out of town. So I went back to work early. Too early, really, as far as what my doctor wanted. But again, I wasn't going to miss taking our son to college.
So when all of this was going on with his heart, Jill, were you at work? You were kind of unaware of what was happening with him?
I was unaware that he went to the fire station and stuff. I knew after he came home, obviously, and we had to see the regular doctor, the physician's assistant, then I knew. But when we went in and they actually showed us, they did an echocardiogram and showed us the image of the aneurysm, that was pretty terrifying. And the surgeon, my gastro surgeon at the time, well, you've done a lot of these, right? And the surgeon said, no, actually, this is my first one. He said, people don't normally live to get this surgery done. And so that was a huge God thing because most people just die and they know afterwards the cause. It's very rare to find them ahead of time and be able to do surgery like they did for Mike. So that was a really scary time. I took a leave of absence from work to care for him at the time. And it was a rough road. He had a lot of challenges recovering, but pulled through that. And like you said, was able to go with to take our son to college. So that was the first huge health challenge in our marriage. I mean, he had other illnesses and I had other minor illnesses and things, but that was the first big one.
And Ron, you know me being a jokester. When we were in the surgeon's office, we were looking at his computer, and I knew it was serious because I'd done some reading on it. And so I remember he was sitting in his chair. I went up and I hit him alongside the shoulder. And I said, oh, this outpatient surgery, right? And he thought I was serious, And he goes, no, it says, I got to stop your heart. I got to open your chest. And I started laughing. Then he realized I was laughing. Then that's when I asked him about, have you done these before? That's when Jill started to turn green. I started to turn green. And it was like, oh, well, got to trust God right now.
You mentioned that John Ritter had died of this, and I had heard about that. And I think most recently that's what happened to Senator Lindsey Graham. He had the same thing, and I know the president had spoken to him the night before and said he sounded fine. So this is generally something that comes upon you so quickly, you really don't even have time to address it. So that was kind of a God thing, that he stepped in and you were able to address this before something terrible happened.
Exactly. So then fast forward to 2019, I had bronchitis. And that was one thing that I always had my whole life, always getting bronchitis. And after a couple of weeks, I was no better whatsoever. So my PA, same one who found the aneurysm, gave me some different medicine. I still didn't get any better. So then she said, something's going on. Let's get some tests done. So I had some tests done, and she said, well, you need to see a pulmonologist. I'm going to send you to a pulmonologist. And she made the appointment. I checked. They did take my insurance, but they're on the far side of Tucson, far away from our place as possible. So Jill and I went out there, find out they did not take our insurance.
Mm.
And so this is God's blessing. Number one. She found us a pulmonologist about a half a mile from our home. And not only was he a pulmonologist, he was the head of the pulmonary department at the hospital. So I felt real confident that he'd be able to help. So he asked us a bunch of questions, ran some more tests. And at that point, that's when he told us I had idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis. And basically, what that is normal lungs are like marshmallows. Air goes in, air comes out, air goes in, air comes out. Mine were like rocks. My lungs were hardening like rocks. And at that point, my lung capacity was at 50% and getting worse. It's a fatal disease. When it gets worse, it doesn't get better. And so he said there are 3 things that could be done. 1, lung transplant. 2, a medicine called OFEV, and another type of medicine that won't help it, but it could stop it, the progression. Slows it down.
Mm-hmm.
It does that for some people. Third option was try to get in some trials, and maybe they might come up with something that will help you. And so we left his office. Jill and I kind of sat in the car and kind of cried for a long time. And at that time, I was working for Chick-fil-A. And I went into the restaurant. I had to cancel my shift for that night. And the doctor had told me I should quit the job because of interaction with people and handling money. If I got sick, my lung capacity would get even worse because I was very, very compromised at that time. I spoke to the owner, Brian White, and did something I'd never done before in my life. I quit a job. And I quit a job without any notice. And he stood up. He came over and gave me the biggest hug I've ever had from anybody in my life. And we embraced at least 5 minutes, it seemed like. And we were both crying our eyes out. And I told him, I said, well, I'm not pulling an option to take behind me yet. I'll be okay. Well, the great thing was I didn't even work there for a year. That's how this man reacted to me. A huge comfort. Huge comfort. He, when I was during surgery, he'd bring over Jill food, our family gathering for my surgery. He brought over all kinds of Chick-fil-A. And even to this day, he'll text me or call me about every other week or so. He's just a great man of God. So that was miracle number 2. So then we go through more testing. We find out that medicine OFEV costs $10,000 a month for 30 tablets.
Yikes.
So, yeah. So Jill and I said, okay, that's off the list. Then the transplant, I was like, I don't see myself getting a transplant. You know, it's such a big ordeal. And if I would even qualify. So I kind of put that off the side. There's no trials going on. So I pretty much decided, you know, this is it. So Jill and I went to the funeral home. We started preparing. We brought cremation package. We went and bought a what do they call it? Columbarium. Bought a place to put my ashes and her ashes. Worked on our wills. I planned my funeral. All this kind of stuff. And I went back to my physician's assistant. And I told her that I'm giving up. She said, well, why don't you go through the transplant process? What do you got to lose? She said, you owe it to yourself. You owe it to your wife. You owe it to your friends. You owe it to your family to at least try.
And how long was this after you were diagnosed?
Probably about 3 months. So I said, yeah, you know what? You're right. So I started to investigate that. And I'd have to go to a different pulmonologist. So made an appointment. I found out that those new pulmonologists and Banner Hospital did not take Blue Cross Blue Shield, which I had. And I couldn't get the operation done in Tucson. I'd have to go to Phoenix, which I think, well, that's not so bad. But you have to live within 30 minutes of the hospital, because when they call you, you got to show up within 30 minutes. Not only that, there's about 25 tests that you have to go through to see if you qualify to get a transplant. So then, once again, called it off. I'm thinking, oh boy. So the transplant team consists of a lot of players. Of course, the surgeon, a couple pulmonologists, then a whole staff of nurses and administrative help. Well, the person who handles the billing talked to the hospital, talked to insurance, and was able to convince them to create a contract between the two of them, between Banner and between Blue Cross Blue Shield, to accept my case. And it was the first time ever that had happened at Banner Hospital.
Wow. That was a God thing.
That's another miracle.
Yeah.
That's just, by now it's like miracle number 3.
Well, and then back up for a minute, that medication that was $10,000 a month. We said we couldn't afford. Then a representative from their company came and granted us that medication to try. So Mike did try that for a few months, but it did not help him. He was one of the ones that did not help, and the side effects were horrible. But anyway, it's another God thing that medication was provided for us through the company.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah, that was another miracle. Thank you, honey, for reminding me of that. Yeah,
So
they,
go on with the insurance though, with the actual surgery. They did a special contract that had never been done before to allow his case, to allow him to have the surgery.
and because it's, again, there was no way we could afford to live in Phoenix and keep our home in Tucson. And it would just been impossible.
And leave our job.
Yeah. Leave her job. Then another miracle is because I was unable to work. I was 62 at the time. I decided that I had to go on Social Security disability. And I was told by many people, basically, good luck. That takes months and up to a year to get approved for that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I applied. I was approved in 1 week. 1 week later, Yes, 1 week later, I was on full disability, getting my full Social Security amount. Where that's important because I had no pension and Jill has no pension. Now we only live on Social Security.
That was definitely a God thing that you got that so quickly. When I went on disability for my Parkinson's, it took well over a year, maybe 14 to 16 months. And I actually got denied twice, and I had to go back to the attorney and we had to start the process all over again. But thank God it finally came through. But 1 week is yeah, that's definitely a God thing.
The
Yeah.
timing of everything is incredible. So, I mean, you know, kind of things in your life. It's such an intense season that it feels like just a roller coaster, you know, of this breakneck speed, and that had to line up in that amount of time in order for all the other things to fall in place. So, I mean, we can see God's hand of faithfulness in every step. When you're in it, in the middle of it, sometimes you're just like, whoa, this is just so much I can't even process.
Yeah, so you can see the pattern here of all these miracles, of all these blessings that are happening in this short period of time. And all of them leading to, Mike, you need to get this transplant. So as time went on, I was told that I could get the transplant, that they accepted me into the program, which meant that I had to leave my pulmonologist. And at that point, my capacity when I started was 40%. And so I was told that I would have to have 25 different tests run to see if I qualified. They literally test you from the top of your head to the bottom of your feet because they want to make sure that you're healthy enough to have a transplant.
Right.
They don't want you to have cancer or have anything else and get a transplant and then have other issues, you know what I mean? Die on the table, a heart attack.
Right.
And so the only thing that was wrong with me is I had a bad tooth that I had to have extracted. And that was the only thing.
That, and they were concerned about the wiring in his chest from the heart surgery years before. So they took that into consideration because they would have to cut through all of that scar tissue to do the lung transplant. So it was, but they felt in every other way he qualified. So that was a risk.
And was this 2019?
Yes.
This is 2019. And they were going to just do a 2020, yeah. And they were going to just do a single lung transplant, which I was kind of disappointed in. But then the doctor said, no, we're going to do a double lung because he was concerned about the wires, cutting through the wires and everything in the chest. And so when I heard that I had to get 25 different tests done, I was thinking, man, this is going to take 15 years to get all this done. Because you know how long it takes to get an appointment for anything.
Oh, yeah.
Well, the transplant team took care of all the appointments. So it only took 30 days to get all those tests done. There are some days I had 2 and 3 tests done at once. And so after I get all those tests done, the last test was with the surgeon. So Jill and I had to meet with the surgeon. And he asked me a couple questions. He said, why do you want to get a transplant? He said, why do you want to live? So I told him, I said, I have a beautiful wife who I love. I have 3 great children. I have 7 grandchildren. And I've only seen 2 of them baptized so far. I want to live long enough to see all of them baptized and come to know the Lord. And he said, okay. He says, now you got to agree to two things. And what's that? He says, you have to obey all the rules and you have to want to live. And I said, okay, I can do that. And I had no idea when he said all the rules, how many rules there were. And the easy, they're all mostly pretty easy. And he was referring to there's certain kinds of food I cannot eat.
Certain temperatures of foods.
Yeah, certain temperatures. Yeah. I can't go fishing. Not supposed to go fishing. Can't be in hot tubs. I can't play in the dirt, plant stuff in the dirt, a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I did, followed all the rules. And so he said, okay, they're going to take it to the board. After that, they take it to all the doctors and they evaluate me. They look at all my tests, and then they give me a code called the LAS code, I think it's called. They assign a number to it. That's how they determine where you fall on the list, transplant list. And so in September of 2020, I was told that I qualified and I'd be on the transplant list. And I still have my sense of humor. And she said, and because of your stature, you should get one pretty quick. And I started laughing. She says, why are you laughing? And I said, my whole life, I've been short. I'm only 5'4". And I said, I hated being short. And I said, now I love being short. Because what that meant, I'd qualify for more lungs. Because lungs of a woman, lungs of a child would fit me where they wouldn't fit somebody else.
You had sent me some photos, Mike, of all of those blood vials that I'd like to share. Was that during the testing process that you went through?
It was. That was probably one of the first tests. And as you'll see in the picture, I was a little worried they left me any blood at all. That's lots of blood.
Yeah, I saw the picture and it was like, how could he possibly give that much blood and still be here?
Yeah. Well, like I say, they tested everything. It took 65 days. It was on November 21st that I got a call to be at the hospital anytime after 2. That's what I was told.
Mm.
And it was a Saturday. It was a Sunday morning. Saturday morning. And I was sitting outside on our patio along with Jill and her mom when we got the call. I went in the house because we had my nephew and some other folks helping us do some work in our backyard. And I walked out and asked Jill a question that they asked me. And she said, who is it? And I told her they got a lungs for me. Well, her and her mom just went crazy. I was just kind of in shock. I kind of didn't believe it. And so I kind of walked around the house, again, like in shock. And I just emptied all the garbage for whatever reason. Went to every room, got all the garbage cans out,
And make sure all the trash was out before he went in the hospital.
Yeah.
That's his job, take the trash out.
So then we called our daughter who lived in Tucson, her husband and kids, and asked them to come over. Our other daughter, her family who live in Texas, were on the way to Tucson because it was just a couple of days before Thanksgiving.
Mm-hmm.
And so I get a call about 2:15, and a nurse said, "Where are you?" I said, "What do you mean?" She says, "You need to be here at 2:00. I said, "Well, the nurse told me anytime after 2." And she said, oh, I hate when they do that. And so she said, you need to be here within 30 minutes. So I hugged my daughter, my mother-in-law, and everybody goodbye. And Jill and I went off to the hospital. And it was a trip that it's hard to explain. I didn't know if that would be the last time I'd drive down my street, the last time I would stop at a stoplight, the last time I'd do anything. If you remember, I was COVID. And Jill was not allowed in the hospital at any point.
Oh,
So when she dropped me off, we both knew what was going on. But neither one of us said, because I knew I may never see my wife again this side of heaven when she dropped me off. Because it's not a very successful surgery.
mm-hmm.
I've heard that a lot of people, a good friend of mine, passed away on the table.
Right.
So it was very emotional.
Did they give you any indication ahead of time what your chances of success were?
No,
I don't think they can tell you.
they can't tell you that.
They tell you, they tell you all the possibilities of what can go wrong, and you sign off on that, because that's the gamble, the risk you take. But
Right.
yeah, that was heart-wrenching for both of us, because I couldn't even go in to be with him during the intake process, to see him back to the room, to kiss him when he went into surgery. I had to drop him off at the door.
Yeah, that was the worst. That was a terrible time.
A terrible time. He was in the hospital
Almost a month.
but I could not see him.
Oh my gosh.
I could FaceTime. The nurses were great about letting me FaceTime with him. But to actually be there or hold his hand or touch him, I couldn't be there. That was horrible. And we were one of the lucky ones that he, was able to come home. But I feel for the families who lost people during that time and couldn't be with them. That was heart-wrenching.
So then there was not only was there a possibility of not making it out of surgery, there's also things that happen once you get out of surgery that could take your life. And so again, all those things are running through both of our minds, and neither one of us were talking about it really. And so we're in the hospital, and the next morning they wheeled me into surgery, and the surgery took about 8 hours, a little over 8 hours, and I had a problem. When I got out of surgery, one of my lungs were not inflating, and the doctors thought they were going to lose me. And they called Jill and explained it to her, and the doctor asked like for permission or something.
Permission to do procedures. I said, yeah, do whatever you need to do. Keep trying.
Keep trying. And it started inflating. So that's another miracle. God said, nope, not yet, Mike. I got you. And so then I sent you a couple pictures of me after my surgery that show me pretty much wired up. They call it Christmas tree. All this clothes with all the stuff hanging off of it. I was pretty much out of it for a couple of days. Then I remember waking up thinking, wow, that didn't happen at all. I'm in the pain. This is great. But then I didn't realize I was on so many drugs. That's why I was figuring out. I was thinking, wow, I don't know why I was so scared of this.
Those drugs can come in handy sometimes, can't they? I imagine you guys are praying through this whole process. Did this really increase your faith?
Absolutely. It did. Our faith was already really strong. This made it even stronger. Being able to see the miracles that he's been doing to us. And it was before this point, it's probably right before I went in for the call, that I was calling this not a lung transplant. It was God's love story. It was God's love story to me, and actually to us. But everything that has been happening, I just thought, you know what? If God didn't love me, he would be doing all this for me. And so everything he had done, I said it was love story to me.
I can remember too, during the time he was in the hospital, I never prayed so hard in my life as I prayed during that time. And I couldn't see people either, because of COVID and because we didn't know when he was going to be able to come home. I had to shelter at home and not go out. So I couldn't see my family. They couldn't comfort me. I could talk to them on the phone, but it was me and the dogs, pretty much at home. And I can remember just knees on the floor, just before the Lord, just weeping and asking for him to watch over Mike. And one of the coolest answers to that was Mike was in right before Christmas, and I didn't know if he was going to come home during Christmas. And I said, God, please just send him someone for Christmas. Send him someone that will just comfort his heart. And Mike, that when we FaceTime that night, it was the most awesome thing because God had sent him, I can see a nursing assistant or
Respiratory
technician, and he came into the room and he shut the door for Mike. Not thinking of that man.
Yes.
So he came in and shut the door and sat on the bed, and he sang "Oh Holy Night" to Mike, which is his favorite. That's his favorite Christmas carol, and I was just floored by that. I said, Lord, you heard my prayer. I knew he heard my prayer, and he sent that man to sing his favorite Christmas carol. I just sobbed. I said, you are real, God. I mean, that he was so real to me during that time, and still is. But that was one that was a real personal one for me. That was he answered that prayer so specific that it was a God answer.
And Ron, I have this picture. I will send this picture to you.
It was awesome. I mean, the team of people have been amazing, but there were specific ones like that throughout the way that I swear that man was an angel. I don't know, but he had a specific assignment to sing to Mike that night.
And it was really kind of funny because the first time he came in the room, he said, you're a believer. And I go, I am. And I said, how'd you know? I said, the minute I walked in the door, the Holy Spirit knocked me over. That the Spirit is so strong in this hospital room. And it was really cool because then he sang the whole song except the very last word of the song. And I had just gotten my trach out and I had a hard time talking. And he just sat there waiting for me to say the last word, which I finally got and squeaked out. And he had this big old smile on his face. And he said, attaboy, that's what I was waiting for.
God is amazing, with things like that. He's so specific, and he sends someone like that to sing your favorite song, and it's just like, man, you just know that God is watching over you and taking care of you, and it just touches your heart.
Yeah, every time. And again, we didn't take it for granted. We knew that it was all from God. And then during the 4 weeks I was in the hospital, I had a couple complications. One of them, middle of the night, about 2 a.m, the nurse comes running in and asked me if I was okay. And I said, yeah, why? He said, well, I just wanted to know. Well, she runs out, comes back in with the doctor. And apparently I had started retaining fluid. And my face,
and air.
Yeah, and air. And my face had almost like blown up 10 times the size.
I saw the picture.
Yep. I asked her to take a picture. She said, no, I'm not going to take a picture. Well, when she turned her back, I took a selfie, which we have the picture of.
Yeah.
So they called in a surgeon, and they had to do what they call fish gills, both sides of my chest, to let air and to let fluid out. They had that took about a week or so. To suction it out, yeah. And that took about a week or so to get back to normal. Then I started to lose blood, and they had to give me a couple transfusions. Blood from clip inside my lung that
They put a clip in your intestine. That's also, yeah,
That's
also from some of the medications.
yeah. And so that was another little complication. And so that kept me from getting stronger and getting up and walking and stuff. Because before you can be moved, they want you to walk a certain amount of length. So I finally got to the point where I could do that. And they have what they call a chariot. I sent you a picture of that. Actually, it was a video, I think, of me walking in the chariot and two techs on both sides. That was difficult. But I finally was able to graduate from that, just using a walker by myself. And it was really kind of interesting because when you have a transplant, you pretty much have to learn how to do everything over again. I had to learn how to talk. I had to learn how to eat. I had to learn everything over, almost being like being born again.
Well, I'm sure a procedure like that has got to be a shock to the entire body.
Exactly. So I started to progress. It was time for me to move on to what they call the step down ward. So they rushed me over there because they had another transplant patient that they needed to move into my room. So they rushed me, not rushed me, but they pushed me up to that floor. And they opened the drapes. I look out the window. The only thing I could see, because of the height of the window, was a church steeple. And I immediately started to cry. It was another part of the love story.
Reminder, God was there.
God was with me. And I get through my tears. I just knew I felt so comforted. And I said to myself, I'm going to wake up early. I want to see the sun rise on that big old steeple, which I did. It was awesome.
Mm-hmm.
It was
So,
awesome.
Jill, this had to be a terrible time for you while Mike was in the hospital and you weren't able to go see him.
Yeah.
What did you do during that time? Did you pray a lot?
I prayed more than I've ever prayed in my life. And I prayed constantly and read my Bible, loved on those dogs, walked the dogs, for me, but I felt very opened by the Lord. It's hard to explain. I felt like his arms were around me when I pray. And I have our children and my mom, they're believers. I could call them and talk to them, and they were encouraging. But it was me and the Lord, and I didn't hold that. I told him everything that was on my heart, but I yelled at him and said, why does he have to suffer like this? I didn't understand a lot of it, and the Lord took me through all of that and let me express my frustration. And I said, why can't I be there with him? I laid it all off there, and yet I felt his arms around me at that time, that he had Mike and he had me, and that has been just a mindful journey with Mike, is that his health has been a challenge, especially the last 20 years or so, the last 15 years, I guess. But the Lord has been there every step with every bit of equipment we needed, every problem that came up. He would resolve it, not always in the time frame we wanted, and we would get, or I would get panicked and think, okay, well, this isn't happening, and then it would turn out, and he would adjust it, and it would work, and someone would step up and help. And so that has really been my part of the journey, has been to see that God has cared for my husband's needs all along the way, and has given me strength to care for him. I was terrified to bring him home. All the rules about things needing to be certain temperatures of food, and washing all our produce in vinegar and water, and keeping everything clean, and worried about germs. He took like 45 pills a day, which I had to manage and give him round the clock. Had to give him breathing treatments, and I'm not a nurse. I wasn't a nurse. I'm a nurse now.
And you do it out of love.
Yeah, I mean, I had to give shots. I had never given shots before. I gave breathing treatments, and I was terrified. And I felt in my spirit the Lord say, "I will help you." And that made me cry too, because I'm like, okay, you better help, then you better show up, God. Because I can't do this without you. And he does. He still does show up for me, because it's a difficult journey as a caregiver to watch the person you love most suffer. That's my biggest challenge.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I let go of that, and I don't understand why, but I do see the Lord show up every time for what we need.
But it's good you kept that relationship with God through the whole process, sharing the good, the bad, and the ugly, and all the different emotions you were going through. God wants that relationship with us. And sometimes I've noticed he'll wait until the last minute, when it seems like all hope is gone, to jump in and save the day at the last minute, because that it was him.
Yeah, there's no other option. There's no other explanation that can other than God. It's
Yeah.
possible otherwise.
So how long were you in the hospital for the entire process, Mike?
For the transplant, I was in 3.5 weeks. And, during that time again, some other cool things happened. My youngest daughter contacted my favorite Christian singer, Mark Schultz. And Mark kept in contact with me. He would send me songs. He would record and send me messages. And he did a Christmas special on Facebook Live. And he talked about me, asked everyone there to pray for me. So I was totally blessed by that. Everybody who came into my room, they got preached to. Or at least I asked them if they were a Christian. I tried to lead people to God. Everyone knew that. I was a real nice guy in the hospital, and people would fight over me to get care of me. And they just loved being in with me. And I, as you know, I'm a talker. I like to talk. I'm an extrovert, and I like to be around people. So I would ask, somebody would come in, and I'd ask them all kinds of crazy questions just to keep them in there, so I have somebody to talk to. And so that was real helpful. And I would FaceTime. We had a setup with Jill and all our children, 7:00 in the evening, every evening. We would FaceTime, a family FaceTime call. And that was a real blessing. And then another thing I sent you a picture of, at the time, I think she was not my youngest granddaughter, but she's pretty young. She asked her mom to cut a piece off of her blankie, her security blanket, and send it to me to comfort me. And I still kind of get teary-eyed thinking about that. And so I wear that, usually put it on my head. And
it was a nice little hat.
Yeah, it was a nice little hat. And I remember one time I woke up about take medicine at 3 a.m. or so, and it wasn't there. I couldn't find it. And I panicked. I told the nurse, you got to find it. You got to find it. She looked all over, couldn't find it. I said, well, look in the trash. Maybe somebody saw it, threw it away. Sure enough, it was in the trash. But no, until I had that, I was panicking. So it was a real special thing to me.
You were in 3.5 weeks, then he came home for a couple of days, but spiked a fever and had to go back.
So I came home. The first night I had to sleep on a chair, and Jill slept alongside me in another chair. And I sent you a picture of us holding hands. And that was the first night home. First time we were able to touch each other in a month.
Was that after Christmas?
No,
Right before Christmas.
right before Christmas.
Oh, so you actually got to come home before Christmas.
I did. But then I had to go back in. I had
like 2 days. He had a high fever.
Yeah, 1 or 2 days. Got 103-degree fever. And they had to rush me back. Jill had to rush me into the hospital. Which again was hard to do because I was still so sore and
Yeah, and I had to leave him at the door again and not go in. Like, what are you doing?
and they thought I had COVID.
They thought he had COVID, and that was terrifying. I had my daughter with me at that time. We sat in the car and we prayed and we sobbed and we sat there for an hour, I think, in the parking lot. And this whole process has been so much of giving it up to the Lord. Okay, Lord, he's yours. He's yours. He's not mine. He's yours, and I'm here to do what you ask of me, but I can't hold on to him. He's yours.
Yeah.
So I was in there the week right before Christmas. And that time, my nurse was in. One day, the nurse was in. This was like 2 days before Christmas. The nurse was in doing vitals and everything. The respiratory therapist came in. And she said, Mr. Spiva, she said, I was afraid you'd be here by yourself on Christmas. So I wanted to give you this gift. Gave me a gift. It was a snow globe of snowman, I think what it was. And of course I started crying. And the nurse, she left, the nurse said, you must be someone special. And I go, why? She says, we're trained not to do stuff like that. We're told not to get close to a patient or give gifts to a patient. And she said, but this respiratory therapist didn't want me alone for Christmas, so she wanted that. And that was so sweet, that she did that. And so after that week, they found out nothing. They couldn't figure out why I had that temperature, so I got to go home. And I sent you a picture of me going home the first time, sitting in a wheelchair with my arm, like doing a strong arm.
Yeah.
That's when I went home the first time. And then when I left the hospital, I didn't walk out the doors. I got wheeled out the doors, and my daughter, her husband, Brandon, and our granddaughters, Michaela and Sadie, were standing outside with big signs, fine, welcome me home and all that kind of stuff. So that was really exciting. So then the next 3 months, Jill had to drive me. I wasn't allowed to drive. And I had to go at least once a week, sometimes twice a week, to the pulmonologist to be checked, follow-ups, blood work, all kinds of stuff, weekly for 3 months. And they released me to come like every 6 months, I think it was. 6 weeks for a while. Every 6 weeks for a while. It kind of went up and up and up. And I kept on getting better. And one other thing that my transplant caused was diabetes. So I have medicine-induced diabetes, and it's very under control. One shot a day now. 1 shot a day. So I don't have to really worry about eating anything special or anything like that. So other than that, I really had no other complications. And so about a year and a half later, our son opened a spice shop in Bremerton, Washington.
Hmm.
He's a chef, and he was working for a cruise company as the corporate chef when COVID hit. So then he had to stop doing that, open this spice shop. And he kept on asking us to come help him. And we just kind of never did it. We decided to do it. So we moved to Bremerton, Washington 4 years ago, 3.5 years ago, in 2022. 2022. And I still kept on doing really well with my with my health. The only really thing that I had a problem with was skin cancer. That's another thing that is caused by the medicine of the medicine I take, anti-rejection medicine. And it causes skin cancer, could cause skin cancer.
Mm.
So from 2022, when we moved here, to last year, I've had about 15 surgeries of removing skin cancer.
Mm.
And other than that, everything was pretty good. I did have COVID one time, which is pretty scary.
Yeah.
In my condition, I'm immunosuppressant. So I think I say it.
Yeah, immunocompromised
Immunocompromised.
because of the transplant meds. They squash the immune system to keep the body from rejecting the lungs, so then you can't fight things off.
And so then that kept us from doing a lot of things with a lot of people. And that's because I was scared. I didn't want to catch it. I didn't want to shorten my lifespan because I wanted to go someplace, you know. So we'd go to church and we'd sit either way in the back or we'd sit in the front row, away from people. Nobody wants to sit in the front row, so we were safe not to be close to anybody. So then as time went on, I was working spice shop, I was doing deliveries and helping with the marketing and doing cooking events with Sam, our son. And Jill worked in the shop,
Retail and production end of it.
Are you both of you originally from Washington? How did you end up there? Was it because your son lived there and you wanted to be close to family?
Yeah, and he needed our help running the business. He wanted our help running the business. And so
It was just him and his wife, and they had little young children. She was pregnant with their third when he started the business, so she was busy at home.
Mm.
It was just him trying to do all the deliveries and the production and all of that. So we came to step in and help, which we did bridge that for a couple of years until he was able to hire more people and then had his production.
Awesome.
So then in July of 2025, we had some friends visit us they lived in Phoenix. And I noticed that I was falling behind walking. And I was having a little bit harder time breathing. And so then that kind of concerned us. So then on July 6th, I believe, 5th or 6th, I was really struggling. I was really having a hard time breathing. We called our transplant team here in Washington. We were able to move transplant teams from the Tucson team to the Seattle team. They had me come in, and because of the way I couldn't breathe, they thought I was having a heart attack in the emergency room. So they tested all that, which of course I knew what was going on. It was determined at that point that I had only 23% lung capacity,
Mm.
lower than it ever had been even before my transplant. So they admitted me to the hospital, and they tried 3 days of infusions and
Mega doses of steroids to try to stop.
tried to stop it. Tried to stop the rejection. At that point, I was told I had a rejection, but they didn't say what kind of rejection.
Mm.
One of the infusions were like 8 hours long.
Yeah, oh yeah, they were over the whole day.
Yeah, over the whole day. And
They're such strong drugs that they have to do it super slow. And have reactions.
yeah.
Mhm.
And so then shortly after that, I was in the hospital for 2 weeks. I went back a couple of times, went back another time, a couple weeks later for a checkup. And that's when the surgeon told me, he said, you've got some decisions to make. And I said, what do you mean decisions to make? What kind of decisions to make? He said, you got to decide if you want to die in the hospital or die at home. And Jill and I were just kind of stunned. And
It was his opinion at the time that whatever was causing this rejection was a rapid moving thing.
because
Mm.
That he probably only had a few months. That was the transplant doctor's opinion at the time.
and the reason that he said that was January of 2025. I had 97% lung capacity. Then,
Wow.
and then in July of 2025, I had 23%.
Mm. Now, had you been taking anti-rejection drugs this whole time, or was there a point where you stopped taking that?
Oh, no, you can't stop taking. I still
Oh.
take it to this day.
Yeah. You take
Okay.
it the rest of
You
your
take it the
life.
rest of your life.
We don't know what caused the rejection other than the fact that his small airways are scarring.
So now he sent us home, and he said, as soon as we find out what kind of rejection, I'll let you know. And so he calls us, and Joe and I are sitting on the couch, and he said, told us he had some bad news, that the rejection was BOS, B-O-S. That's the type of rejection it was. And that's a fatal rejection.
Mm.
He said there's it doesn't get better. No medicine can increase it. He says your capacity will either stabilize or it'll get worse and you'll die. And he said at that point that we should check into hospice. And once again, God said nope. So it was a hard time. So I went back to what I did when I first found out. Started getting all my affairs in order. Started to get everything ready. Trying to make it as easy on Jill as I could.
Mm.
And this whole time, I put updates on Facebook and let people know what I'm dealing with. And so time went on. And at that point, I could still walk without a walker. But that was the first time since before my transplant that I had to go on oxygen full time.
Mm.
And I also had to quit working for Sam and quit doing the cooking events. I couldn't do anything. I had to stay home.
Yeah.
Jill was still able to work. And so that's hard. That's hard to think about. The BOS rejection happens to 50% of the transplant patients within the first 5 years of their transplant.
Mm.
And mine fell, but 4 months short of my 5th lung anniversary. And so I'm just one of the unfortunate 50% people as far as that goes. I think right now I could be one of the fortunate ones because I've been able to show and witness to so many people of God's miracle and continued miracles in my life, and how much Jill and I lean on God to make life possible. God has continued to bless us through all this. We have wonderful neighbors who help us. And it's just been one blessing after another. So then, one of the blessings I had was I got to, from my transplant, I got to see 5 of my grandchildren baptized.
Mm.
And he even gave me an extra blessing. Our granddaughter, who is pretty shy, sang a solo in church this past Sunday. It was part of the youth takeover. She was singing on the worship team. And that brought us some tears. And I just told Jill, I said, that's just an extra blessing. I just told my doctor I want to see him baptized. So God just continues to bless us. A week or so before my transplant, Sam and his wife had a baby boy.
Mm.
And totally blessed by little James. And I was able to, with my son Sam, coach him T-ball last year. I had coached Sam from T-ball all the way up to high school.
Oh.
And so to be able to have a third generation on the field, Sam, myself, and James, was a real blessing. And so that was last year. This year, I got to go see him play. But so let me keep on going as far as my health thing goes. So we get through all this heartache. Again, thinking that any day I'm going to die, especially because the doctor wanted to set me up in hospice.
Mm-hmm.
And so we did get set up with palliative care instead of hospice, and had PT and OT come out and work with both Jill and I, teaching me how to breathe better,
Mm-hmm.
as far as how to breathe, giving me exercises. I had special exercises, set up our house to make sure everything was safe. And although I was on oxygen, I still was able to walk from room to room without too much problem. But then comes December of 2025. That was a hard time. I got real sick. And I finally went to the hospital here in our town, Bremerton. Transplant hospital, by the way, is in Seattle, about an hour and a half away. So I went into the hospital here. They couldn't help me. They had to take me by ambulance at 1 a.m. to the Seattle hospital. So I get to the Seattle hospital without Jill. She couldn't do that. She couldn't come with me that time.
I couldn't come at, they wouldn't let me ride in the ambulance. I would have had to drive to Seattle at 1 a.m. So that we had been up for 24 hours. I was like, that's not smart. So I waited till the next morning.
Which was
Yeah.
totally fine. I wouldn't want her driving anyway.
Yeah, I couldn't have done it.
And so at that point, I pretty much told him, I told God, I'm laying there. I just felt I was dying. I was so sick. And I said, I remember praying. And I said, God, I've been fighting so hard to stay alive, to be with my family, to be with those I love, to tell people about you. I said, but you can bring me home now. You can bring me home. And he said, nope, not yet.
He says that a lot, doesn't he?
I got more blessings for you, pal. Got a lot more
Not quite
blessings.
yet, Frank, the room's not done.
Looks like that's right. And so they found out through testing that I had either a fungal infection in my lung or I had a bacterial infection. We also found through a chest x-ray that I had a something called
A cavity.
cavity.
That's why they think it's fungal, because they form cavities in the lungs.
So I had this big old cavity hole in my, not hole, but the cavity in my lung. And they were unable to test for sure to find out if it was a fungal infection or a bacterial infection because I was not strong enough to go through the testing process because they would have to put me out. They would have to intubate me. And the doctor said,
Down.
what's that?
And put a scope down.
Yeah, put a scope down my
Wasn't
throat.
strong enough to do that.
And they said that would have killed me. So they didn't.
Wow.
So they didn't do that. So what they did was they treated for both. And it appears that it is a fungal infection. And then what happened there, after that point, my health went down pretty bad. As far as my strength, breathing, I'm pretty much unable to do anything. I can't walk from room to room without having to take anywhere from 3 to 10 minutes to recover, to be able to breathe normal again. I have a hard time even talking, and I've had to stop several times to recover.
Has your lung capacity stabilized at all?
We don't know for sure because I'm unable to do the test, and I'm assuming maybe it's gotten a little worse, but maybe it's stayed the same too. As a little sidebar, I'll go that later. So then in December, we had to make the decision for Jill to stay home with me full time and be my full-time caregiver. You know, I can't drive. I haven't driven in over a year, which kills me because I love to drive.
Yeah.
And I can't, like I said, I can't go from room to room. I can't cook because with oxygen, you're advised not to be around any flame or be around anything hot. So I'm pretty much useless.
It's not true.
So I'm pretty much, I call it chair bound. I love sitting looking out the window. We live in a 55 plus mobile home community. And a lot of activities going on that before I got sick, Jill and I were able to participate in. So we know a lot of people. All those people, they drive by, walk by, ride their bikes by, they wave at me through the window because they see me sitting in the window looking at them. They bring over goodies for us. What's really funny is I've lost 63 pounds, down to 110 pounds. And when they hear that, they bring over cake and cookies and all the good stuff. And I love it. And they've helped a lot with meals. And take care of our dog. Yeah, exactly. Our dog. They come over and sit with me. And Jill has to go somewhere. They'll come over and sit with me, so I'm not alone. Then, what was really a blessing is because Jill had to quit her job. We only live on Social Security, as I said before.
Yeah.
Not a lot of Social Security. And so our kids got together. They put a GoFundMe together to help supplement and put away in savings so Jill could stay at home. And so what we do is that she made about $1,000 a month. So with that money, we use $1,000 a month to help live on, along with my Social Security. And so we were so blessed by that. So many people have donated and has helped us. And you can imagine the stress of not being able to work, not being able to do anything. But GoFundMe really helped.
You know, that was a huge blessing and comfort to me too, because I thought how can I stay home when we need my income, you know, we can't afford to hire somebody, you know, so that was another thing that God took care of in a very short amount of time. And when he was so ill and in the hospital in December, that's when our kids started that. And within 2 weeks, we had income for me for an entire year.
Wow.
So it was like, wow, you know, God did that again and blessed us with that, with people's generosity just to help care for Mike. It was just another way the Lord proved himself. Like, you're not going to let this be a stumbling block. You know, you're going to go ahead and take care of your husband, and I'm going to take care of what you need.
We've been really blessed by our children and our grandchildren and our whole family, actually. Our daughters both came out and flew here from Ruth, our oldest, from Texas, and Sarah, our middle daughter, from Tucson, to be with us and to be with Jill and help Jill while I was in the hospital. Then we also have our grandkids calling us, playing the piano for us, playing the guitar for us. Our other granddaughter playing the violin. Our other grandson acting, and we'll get to see stuff of his acting and his ROTC work. And of course, our grandchildren here. Our granddaughters are in dance, so we've got to see them in the Nutcracker. And just all the support and the love that we have gotten, not only from our kids, but from the community, our neighbors, our friends, has just been a huge blessing.
I just want to say our family has been a huge support. I had sisters and brother come out too and support, and just the phone calls and the prayers. Our daughters are very dear to my heart too, and our son, just calling with support and loving on us during this time and doing whatever they can do to help us out. So they've been a huge part of this journey as well.
Yeah, just the support. You can feel their love, them holding your hand, just helping us any way they can. And it's just a blessing.
Yeah, they would get groceries for me and cook meals and vacuum and take the dog out, whatever I needed them to do. You know, they were there for me and still are. So,
still are. Yeah.
Yeah, it's been amazing.
Yeah.
How many kids total do you have?
3 kids, 2 daughters and a son.
And how many grandkids?
7. The Lord has blessed us 7 times with grandkids. Yes.
And they're all awesome.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah. Again, all these blessings, they don't go unnoticed by us or other people. We tell people about them.
Well, they're so amazing. They're just so amazing. Like, he needed a hospital bed. That hospital bed was ordered by the doctor and delivered the day before he came home. You know, I mean, it's just like, okay, he can't lay flat. So there's the hospital bed. There it is for you. I didn't even have to go get it. They delivered it to the house. They set it up for me. They showed me how to work it. And that and all, you know, the medications we've needed. They've been able to call in. Neighbors have picked up a lot of times for me. So I mean, it's just been one blessing after another, and just the care. That's another neighbor, we forgot to tell him, another neighbor gave him an electric scooter, so we can get him on a scooter, he can get outside and he can visit with neighbors. which was amazing because he couldn't get out before. So,
Mm.
it's so many things, so many personal things that the Lord has given through the journey.
So the days that I feel good and the days that the weather is nice, I get on that scooter and either Jill and I go together and walk the dog, or I go. And here at the trailer park, they have a pond. A lot of times I'd go sit by that pond, and I'd call that my war room. And I just sit there and pray, overlooking the pond. And here in Washington, it's nothing but huge green trees.
Mhm.
And so it's a real place for me to just kind of be alone with God. And so
Yeah.
I wouldn't be able to do that without that school. So that's another way God blessed us. And again, like Jill said, so many neighbors and friends. And then we have, before I tell you about another set of miracles, another real miracle and blessing is one of the part of the transplant team members keeps in contact with us.
Our original team
In Tucson, daily or almost every day. She'll text or email and just chat, see how we're doing, encourage us. She sent us a couple of
packages.
couple gifts mail before, and just a wonderful person sent by God to encourage Jill and I. And it's just been such a blessing to have her as part of our lives. And the funny thing is, we've never even met her face to face. So now let's go on. We ain't done yet, buddy. God's still working.
Said you had all day, right, Ron?
That's right. We do.
And so by this time, this is December. We got the PT person back again. And we've got the nurse. Now we got a nurse coming once or twice a week. And helping me out. And I had a couple open sores from laying in bed at the hospital. She had to take care of those. And they'd come in every like week or so, listen to me, take all my vitals. I was really sick. And so then things slowly got a little bit better, got released. And then in April of this year, I had a collapsed lung. One of my lungs collapsed. I was sitting on our deck in the front yard, and I started having a hard time breathing. Jill rushed me in to the house, and we called the paramedics. I said right away, call the paramedics, which
Who doesn't normally?
no, I don't want them. So they came in.
So you knew it was something pretty serious.
I did, yeah. And they came in, they listened to me, and right away they took me. They said, "We hear no movement." Didn't ask any questions, nothing. Just took me. They put this high flow oxygen mask on me. And took me to the hospital. And at first I thought it was kind of cool. So they had the lights going and the siren going. I thought, yeah, this is pretty cool. This is a bucket list thing. Well, then I started thinking, wait a minute, I must be in bad shape if they got the siren going. The last thing I remember is the doctor asking me my permission to cut off my shirt. I said, yeah, do whatever you need to do. Last thing I remember. That's when they told Jill.
They put a chest tube in.
They put a chest tube in me because I had a collapsed lung. And it wasn't getting better. It wasn't inflating. And so Jill and our son Sam was with me the entire time. And I remember kind of waking up from the drugs a little bit and seeing Sam there, her son, crying. And I'm thinking, man, what's going on? I didn't know. Again, I didn't know what was going on.
Yeah.
And then
fentanyl and heavy duty medication.
yeah. Then I look over and Jill's crying. I'm thinking, man, I still didn't understand what's going on. Well, they had told Jill at the most I'd have 2 days to live.
That was their best guess because his lung was leaking air into all the cavities around and he was puffing all up. And the doctor said to me at that time, the pulmonologist, he said, "We can't fix this." And I remember him saying that very clearly. This isn't something we can fix. And I remember saying, "Okay, then keep him comfortable. If you can't fix it, then keep him comfortable." That was our conversation. And I asked him, I said, "How long do you think he has?" He said, "Probably a couple days." And then that night, we were all praying about that. And the next morning, his feet had started turning purple from lack of oxygen. There was color in his feet. His toes were pink instead of the purple. And I said, "Hey, his feet are looking better, and his fingertips are no longer purple." And then you started, actually, the puffiness started going down a little bit. The pulmonologist said, we're seeing some improvement, which was, and then we said to each other, "Okay, they can't fix it, but God can."
Mhm.
He said, "It's too big of a hole for them to fix." Well, not too big of a hole for God to fix. He kept getting better, and everybody was shocked, surprised. They're in the hospital. We're like, "Hey, he's making improvements." They're all celebrating, It was,
And
So
again,
once again, God has stepped up and said, "I'm not finished with you
that
yet."
he said, "Nope, not yet, Mike." And so then after it started getting better, the pulmonologist would come in. We just love this guy. Great guy. We never met him before at the hospital. And I looked at him and I said, "You couldn't fix it, but our God fixed it." And he kind of gave me a smile. He put his hand on top of my arm, and he knew. He knew. And then so that was in the hospital for 2 weeks. And then from there, and I had to go to a rehabilitation center to get my strength back. I was there on my birthday, and
Mhm.
that was hard again, being away from Jill. And yeah, Jill could, at least they could visit.
it was closer. I could at least visit.
That was only a mile away. And so then, once again, neighbors stepped up, would help us with our dog, and brought over meals, brought over, we haven't met a bad cook in this neighborhood yet. Yeah, we have
It's great
neighbors.
to have neighbors like that.
Yeah. And people stop by. I still, if somebody's sick, of course, I don't want to come. But people walk by, honk the horn, waves. It makes me feel so good when people do that. And then, it's going back to when I was in the hospital the first time with the transplant. They told me I had to be real careful of depression.
Mm.
And so they said, you need to find a hobby. Well, the hobbies I had was golf, basically, baseball. And so I would go on the different Facebook groups and try to decide what I wanted to do. And I remember when I was a young man and a kid, I used to like playing with slot cars.
Mhm.
So I was in some slot car groups. And I met this one gentleman who his wife needed a transplant as well. So we hit it on. His name was James. We had a great friendship, and we still have a great friendship. Next thing I know, he sent me all kinds of tracks, everything to do to set up a slot car set. And that was such a relief. And because I was able to work on that and keep my depression at bay. I never really got depressed because I always had something to do. It was because of this gentleman who I never met before. And he took the time at his own expense, sent me all kinds of slot car supplies, as did other people in the group who'd send me stuff. And it was just a blessing that people would bless us. And I'm sure it was God who touched their hearts in order to do that, to send stuff to me. So this whole journey has been one blessing after another. Now, leading up to a couple of days ago, when you asked me what my lung capacity was, the way they do that is called the spirometer test.
Mm-hmm.
And I had one of those scheduled last week. And I couldn't do it. It's basically you sit in front of a computer with a tube. You breathe into it. And then when they tell you, you got to take a deep breath in and push a breath out real hard. Well, I had trouble just breathing normal. Did you take off your oxygen? They plug your nose. And so I couldn't do that. And so that's why I'm assuming it's the same. And again, we think that could be a God thing too. God doesn't want us to know what it is. He's in control of that. Not the doctor, not me.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's your answer. I don't know what it is right now. I don't think it's any better than 23% yet. But anyway, so we've asked all our friends, all our Facebook friends, all this time to pray for a miracle that God will restore my lungs to full capacity. You know, your listeners know, God is still in the miracle business.
Mm-hmm.
We've seen miracles all throughout the Bible. We've seen miracles in my life. Just a couple months ago, doctor said they can't fix that lung. They can't fix that hole. But God can. That's a miracle right there. We've spoken probably the last hour or so. All the miracles God has performed already. So we know we can perform miracles. When you asked me to do this today, I was thrilled because just the night before, I prayed to God. I said, I want to tell more people. How do I tell more people that there's neighbors right now driving by? And I asked God, how can I don't know how to do it because I can't get out. You know, I don't know what to do. How can I tell more people of your love, of your grace, of your miracles? I think sometimes people forget about miracles.
Mm.
And then the next day, you contact me. And you asked me if I would tell my story. And I know you've got thousands of people who listen to your podcast and your website. And Jill and I just went. You know, this was an answer to prayer. Another miracle as far as I'm concerned.
Mm. Wow.
And so the journey's not over. You know, I still have lots of things to do. I got to see, like I say, my grandson played T-ball this year. That was a big goal when the nurses and the doctors and the PTs, what do you want to accomplish right now? Because I want to go see my grandson play baseball.
We got there in a wheelchair.
We got there in a wheelchair.
We saw a couple games, so.
So that was a total blessing. There's an organization here in town called Knights of Columbus that loan medical equipment. So through them, I've been able to get a walker and
A rolling walker in a wheelchair.
wheelchair. That no cost. Again, just another blessing for God.
Turn it back in when you're done.
Another hobby I have is collecting bobbleheads of the Arizona Diamondbacks.
Mm.
And so when I was in the hospital, I went into a bobblehead Facebook group, met a gentleman there, and he had season tickets in his life for the Diamondbacks for many years. And he had a bunch of seconds, if you will, because he had one his wife had him. He asked if I would like them. And I couldn't say yes fast enough. And I thought he was, going to sell them to me. he gifted them to him, gave to him. He lived
Wow.
in Phoenix. He drove down. There must have been 40 or 50 bobbleheads.
Mm.
And to this day, we still are close friends. We text daily, almost daily, especially during the baseball season. And our other friend James, who I told you about, we still text and call each other all the time. So this whole journey has brought Jill and I so many new friends that we can't fathom it. And we're just so blessed that we've been able to still live, basically. And now this is not the way we planned our retirement, but we're still, in love and have each other more than ever. Jill's a wonderful caregiver. Every night I thank her for taking such good care of me. And she basically does everything for me, except a couple of personal hygienes that I can do myself. But, she has to give me a bath. She has to do everything else. I can't help with the dishes. I can't help with the yard work. Bless her heart, she does everything.
Mm.
So I'm blessed. I'm blessed. God has blessed me. He's blessed Jill. And some people may think otherwise, but we're happy to get in the car and take a little drive and get an ice cream cone. I enjoy going for a car ride. I usually try to do that once a week or so when I'm feeling up to it. Otherwise, we go to a doctor's appointments. But it's hard. It's hard to get up to the car and get in the car. And it seems like our rides usually end up at a place that sells ice cream. That's always a good thing.
That is a good thing.
Anybody who's dealt with a major illness, whatever, it really narrows your focus and puts things into perspective. It really makes you appreciate sharing a cup of coffee with your spouse, sitting out on the deck and watching a sunset, of things that you don't even think about unless you're forced to slow down. And so I feel like that for me, I was busy all the time, working hard and busy even when I wasn't working, and the Lord has made me slow down through this process and just appreciate the small things. So, I can honestly say it's a difficult journey. We wouldn't have chosen it, but as Mike said, there are so many blessings along the way. We see the Lord's hand in people all the time. We step up to help or give a hug or give a word of encouragement. You see the Lord's hand in that and know that He cares for you in it, all along the way. And that's what my biggest blessing has been, is my God is real to me now, very real. Where before I believed in Him, but now and I see Him in my days.
That's right. He makes Himself very real to us.
Yeah,
very visual to us.
yeah. And because we need to depend on Him.
Yeah.
And it's a sweet dependence. It's like, thank you, Lord, that you are there to depend on, that we can come. And I would just encourage anybody to lay it all out there before the Lord. Like you said before, the good, the bad, and the ugly. He's big enough to take that and help you. He wants that. He doesn't condemn you for that. He loves you.
Reach it.
He just loves you.
Yeah.
And He wants that relationship, and He wants it all, everything.
Yeah, and He's got it all. We also have a wonderful small group that we used to attend regularly, but now we can't because of small quarters, and it's hard to be around people. Plus, everyone's got stairs, and I can't go upstairs. But we Zoom with them, and they've just been so supportive of us, helping us, bringing us little gifts and financial, anything that we need, they're there for us. And these are, again, people that we'd only been in the small group for maybe 6 months or so. And it's just people are beautiful. It's really amazing.
It sounds like you have a really good support team, and that's really important when you go through something like this. Sounds
Absolutely.
like you've got good neighbors, and man, I am just blown away with how many times God has intervened.
You said something about you want to tell my story, and I said you haven't seen half of it.
It's really inspiring and encouraging to see what God has done through this whole process and to know that He's not finished yet.
I'm glad
Maybe in 15 or 20 years, we'll do a second part.
well, I'm glad you said that, because again, I asked myself, God, what do you want me to do? What am I going to do with all this? And the one thing I noticed is everyone tells me that I inspire them. I encourage them. Like if you read my Facebook posts, people will say that throughout almost everybody says that. So now I'm thinking, okay, he wants me to encourage people. He wants me to keep on telling the story, to encourage people, inspire people that they can do things too, that they can rely on God the way I rely on God. And I think, and so I'm thinking that's one of the things that he wants me to do is use his work in me to inspire others, to bring others closer to him through my inspiration.
Mike has been a really good friend to a lot of people. That's one thing I really admire about him is he's a really good friend.
Do you want to end this with some prayer?
That'd be great.
Yeah, I'd
There's
love to end in prayer.
Okay, that sounds great. Father God, I just thank you so much for Jill and for Mike. Lord, you've just been so amazing during this entire journey. We just love you and we praise you for loving us and for caring for us, for always watching out for us. And we know, Father, that your timing is perfect. A lot of times we get antsy and we want things to happen right away, but we know, Father, from the evidence that you've shown us, your timing is perfect. And for that, Father, we praise your name. We love you. We thank you. And we pray that you watch over Jill, that you give her strength through this whole process and give her rest, Father. I can't even imagine how tiring this is for going through all of this for so many years, almost 2 decades. I pray for rest for Jill, and I pray that you'll give her strength and resilience. And Lord, I pray over Mike. We know that you are the great healer, Father, and you brought him this far, and you still have wondrous things for him to do. I pray, Father, you will open his lungs. I pray that you will open his lung capacity and lift those numbers up, allow him to breathe normally. You are the great healer, Father. I pray that you will heal those lungs and make them like a little child again, and just allow Mike to get out and to speak boldly in your name and to just testify of the wonderful things that you have done. He is a great living testimony of your wondrous goodness and mercy. We thank you, Father, for your grace. We thank you, Father, for watching over all of us, and just pray that you'll be with each and every one of us for the rest of our lives and guide us every step we take. We thank you for all these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
If you will, when you hit your knees, if you'll please remember my wife, Jill, in your prayers. Please pray for her strength. Pray for her patience. And Lord, pray for me, for my complete healing, that God would breathe his breath into my lungs and bring me back to full lung capacity. I'd really appreciate if you would remember us in your prayers. Thank you.
I want to say thanks to Mike and Jill Spiva for sharing their ongoing God story. Please pray for their family. Support them if you can. I'll leave the link here and in the description section. It would certainly mean a lot to them if you could help. Thanks so much for watching. Be blessed.